Hi and welcome to Cherry Pie Math. This video is going to go over circumference and where that comes from and the basic formulas thereof. So before we get started, you need to know the definitions of circumference, pi, and radius, and we are going to go over those throughout the video, but it helps if you know them right away. So let's take a look at a circle. And here's my radius, right? It's that distance from the center to the outside. And I want to see how many times I can fit a radius around the edge of the circle. So each of these parts out here, actually I'm going to use a highlighter for that. Each of these represents this same distance if I had like kind of bent it around. And that's actually called a radian. That's going to be in a later video, but it's kind of, we're going to be wrapping them around and seeing how many of them are going to fit. So if I take these three here, I'm going to start it at that radius part so I can see. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my pink one and start it kind of at that same part, like if that line continued. And as you can see, it's not a perfect fit. There is, like, it's kind of close to 3 on each side, but there's just like a little tiny bit left, right? Like this part, let me actually do this part in red. So there's a missing part here and a missing part here. Fun fact, this is actually going to be 1 pi. So to get all the way around the circle would be 2 pi, 2 pi of the radiuses. So 2 pi radiuses fit around the edge of the circle. And that's basically where the concept of circumference comes from, is that because we're using the radius, because that's the only thing that's really unique to a circle is the radius, we're going to take that all the way around. So if you use like a string and you just drew a circle with that string all the way around, and then you use that same string to measure it, you'd end up with 3 and a little bit on each side. That's pi. So that's where the circumference formula comes from. It's the circumference. We just write C, so circumference is equal to 2 pi r. And remember, there's like these little multiplication things in the middle. So really all you have to do, if you want to find the circumference, you have to do 2 pi times the radius, because like we saw before, you can fit the radius 2 pi times around the edge of the circle. But 2 and r is equal to the diameter, right? Because if I have a circle and I have a radius, the diameter is just double that. So I've also seen students really like the pi d because it's just less numbers to remember. Personally, I like the 2 pi r better because in the area formula, you also have r. And I just remember that there's a 2 pi and r in both of the equations. The only difference is that in area, it's pi r squared. So that's how my brain likes it, is it just remembers like, oh, this is where the 2 goes and this is where the r goes. But some people like to have pi d. It really doesn't matter either way. So let's practice. We're going to have some formulas here or some real life examples here, and we're going to plug it in. And that's really all it is. So let me split the view here. Yeah. Okay, so let's say we have a 12-inch pizza. So that means I have a circle. And the diameter, oh my goodness, imagine that is supposed to go through the middle. Ah, there we go. So that's 12 inches right there. So my circumference is 2 pi r, or I actually already have the diameter, so it would just be pi d. And I'm just going to plug in 12. So if I go over here, I press pi, and then I do parentheses 12, and I get 37.6991184. Pi is infinite. It's an irrational number. There is no end to pi. So really, we just kind of round it up. So we would say like 37.7, I guess, and then inches, and that would be my circumference. It would be inches, not squared, because it's not an area, it's a length, and so the unit would just be by itself. And that's really all it is. So let's go ahead and try another one. Let's try if I have a carousel with a 9-foot carousel radius. So let's say you're on your carousel. You know, the carousel goes like this. And from here to wherever they're sitting is 9 feet. Since I have a radius, I'm going to use 2 pi r. Again, it really doesn't matter. You could just say the diameter and just use 18 instead. You end up with the same thing. So C equals, let's see, 2 pi 9. Oh, that's not the right button. 9. Which is 56.55, we'll say, because we're rounding to the nearest hundredth. To 2 decimal points, and then because it's in feet, it would be 56.55 feet. And really that's all circumference is can you recognize what the radius or the diameter is and just plug it in. So let's do one more. Let's find the wheel. The circumference of a wheel with a diameter of 30 centimeters. So here's my wheel, my diameter, so all the way across is 30 centimeters. And because I have a diameter, I'm going to use pi d, or you could use the radius. You could just say this part up to here is 15 centimeters, and then do 2 pi times 15. Honestly, I don't care. Just pick one. So I'm going to use pi d in this case. So C equals pi times 30. Let's see what that gives me. So pi and then times 30 is 94.25 centimeters. Ta-da! That's all circumferences. Isn't that super easy? So some things to remember is you can use either formula. You can use C equals 2 pi r, or you can use pi d. Again, I don't care. Just remember the units. If you don't remember the units, honestly, that's half the battle, because there's not a whole lot to grade you on when it comes to circumference. It's can you recognize that the formula? Can you plug in a number? And then can you remember the units? And then the cool thing, I think, is that pi is the ratio of the circumference to the diameter. And we kind of saw that earlier where we had like the amount of radii that can fit around, and it was 3.14159 whatever to get halfway, and then it's twice that to get all the way around. So I hope that was a good introduction to circumference. Hopefully you're able to solve some problems with circumference, and good luck.